Well, hello from Gardening at Douentza, and I'm in Germany at the moment. And just recently I was chatting to a friend of mine who happened to mention that the Schwerter Orchid Nursery was a mere hour away from where I was staying in Cologne. Now, that's like red to a bull as far as I'm concerned. And even though it's my last day in Germany, I'm flying back this evening. And even though the orchid nursery is only open from 10:30 to 12:30 on a Sunday, and even though it was a mere 5 train rides and 2.5 hours by public transport, not the 1 hour that you would spend if you were in a car, I'm here. I've made it to Schwerter, and I'm just sitting outside here on the step at the moment, waiting for them to open in about half an hour. And then I'm going to go inside and I'm going to have a look at the amazing orchids they have there. Now, anyone who's watched my channel for a while will know that I guess the majority of my collection is due to Schwerter orders that I've made over the years. And yes, it's all so exciting. Let's just show you where I am. So there we can see up there. Oh, I'll make some proper footage in a minute. Can't really tell what I'm doing with this back to front camera, but yeah, really exciting stuff, and not what I was expecting at all on this trip to Germany. So come on inside with me, let's have a look at the orchids, and maybe 1 or 2 small things will find their way home with me in my bag. So you're very welcome to this video premiere of my visit to the Schwerter Orchid Nursery in Germany. And before we go and look at the plants, we'll just have a quick glance at the stock along the side here, the paraphernalia we need to grow orchids. That down there is my coat, because it was so warm in this greenhouse I had to find somewhere to put it. And there we have all the pots and things, but look up there, look at these amazing clay pots. Absolutely gorgeous orchid pots. Now, I've seen these for sale on the Schwerter website, but they don't ship them abroad. So maybe I'll treat myself to one of these, as it's something I could only get from being in the nursery and taking it back with me. Oh, look at that hanging one. It's just gorgeous. Okay, are you ready for this? Brace yourselves, because we are about to dive into the very first greenhouse here in the Schwerter nursery. And it seems to be one that has a lot of plants in flower in it, so not particularly cattleyas or paphs or whatever, just a mixture. But I just, well, wow, look at all these cattleyas. A sea of cattleyas. It was divine. Now, as we progress around this nursery, pretty soon you're going to see labels that I put up on the screen. So if I took a snapshot of the label, I have put it there for your convenience. If it's not there, I don't have the info. Now, this plant here is LC Final Blue, and I have one at home, so it was really nice to see it there, where it came from originally. So the story with my Laeliocattleya Final Blue is that it had an emergency repot 3 months ago, and I was so careful when I repotted it because it had good roots and I made sure not to break them. But then I managed to break off the new growth. Oh, it was terrible. I was quite sure that it wouldn't regrow, but you know what? There was another eye on it, and now I have a second strong new growth. Well, second in the sense that the first one is gone. Okay, so more cattleyas and Phaius tankervilleae. I love this plant, so love the normal species one rather than the alba form, which we're just about to see. And the alba form is the one that I have at home. It's just like a pale, ghostly imitation of the real thing. Now, there were 2 problems as far as I was concerned looking around this nursery, and the one was that I couldn't see any prices anywhere. Everything was very well labelled, but there were no prices. And the second problem was that there were no pictures of what the plants would look like in flower. I later learned that there was a computer available that you could look up and and check out these things, but I didn't know it at the time. Now look here, here's a plant. It's the King of Taiwan, which I have at home, the one that I suspected was virused very recently. And did you see those pseudobulbs are quite purple? Well, so are my pseudobulbs, the ones on my plant, and people had suggested that it had some kind of deficiency, hence the purpleness, but I always suspected that it was just the natural colouring of the plant. And here it is in the nursery with the same, so I think I'm right. Now, one thing about looking at orchids and having no idea what the eventual flowers will be like is that you appreciate the foliage fully, and look at the gorgeous foliage on this plant. It really made me want to just buy it for the sake of that. And that's not something we do normally with orchids at all. Another great foliage orchid plant is the vanilla, of course. And if you grow this in my part of the world anyway, you better like the foliage, because that's what you're going to get. No flowers, just lots and lots of foliage. And Coelogyne Burfordiense, yeah, I have one at home and it is not pushing up a spike like that one, so I'm definitely doing something wrong there. So back again to my two problems with the nursery, the one being the lack of prices. Well, that wasn't really such an issue because I kind of know what Schwerter prices are like. But the one of not seeing the flowers as they would eventually, what they would look like when they flowered, that was a problem. And I couldn't even check online because there was no internet I could pick up there to see what the flowers would look like on the Schwerter catalogue. And the staff didn't speak English, so I was really kind of stuck. Now, in addition to that, I only had a mere 2 hours to look around this nursery. So it was very little time to make a video, a sensible video, get proper label information to put on the video and decide what I wanted to buy, because you know, when you want to get something nice, there's a certain amount of research you need to do, and if you're rushing around taking a video, it can be very tricky. So come with me now, we're going to go into a different house, house 6 as you see, and I think in my visit I actually only got to see 5 of the greenhouses here, but not to worry. And this one had, well, bromeliads there and some gorgeous Phalaenopsis. Look at this philippinensis with the amazing foliage. And it was really interesting to see the roots as well, because they were really flat. Look at that fella, he looks like a snake or something. So strange that the roots were really flat. Anyway, a feature, I'm sure. As you can imagine, I was particularly attracted to the orchids with nice foliage. But look at all these baby ones. This was so interesting to see. Hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of babies, all waiting to be potted up. I see the labels there at the end. And my goodness, like, how many staff do they employ that they can... I don't know, how do you do that? I don't enjoy potting at the best of times myself, but can you imagine looking forward to coming to grips with that lot? I think it's a kind of nightmare. They all looked like really healthy small plants. And in fact, there was a separate greenhouse for the baby plants, seemed to be for the baby plants, which we'll visit in a little while. But for the time being, we'll have a quick look at these mounts. Now, I don't have labels for most of these because the labels were attached to the back of the mount and I didn't spend time lifting them down and checking them out. So just bear with me and appreciate the vista of so many orchids being grown so beautifully together. Now, normally when I visit an orchid place, I like to have a good look around first and decide what I want to buy and then come back and look at it again. But I had no chance this time round to look at things twice. So at least I had the presence of mind as I went round the first time to grab out a few things that I thought I wanted to buy, and I was so glad that I did, because I ran out of time at the end. Suddenly there was only 15 minutes left, and if that 15 minutes had been my time to go back and choose what I wanted to buy, I would have really been unstuck, let's just say. Okay, and speaking of unstuck, here are all those baby orchids again, just waiting for potting up. And I just was completely blown away at the extent of what they have to do. Can you imagine the value of the stock that they have here in this nursery? My mind just doesn't compute maths that big. I must say everything was really well labelled and really well organised. Reminded me of the German transport system that got me here to the nursery with the 5 connections. It was efficient, and that's why I'm here to bring you this wonderful nursery visit. Okay, so we're now looking at a load of Phalaenopsis, and while phals aren't really my cup of tea, I did enjoy a lot of the ones that they had here at the nursery. Now these ones mostly have green foliage, but I was particularly captivated by the ones with the mottled foliage, and we're going to see a few of those very shortly. I was really quite captivated by this cross. It's a cross between Schwelleriana and Stewartiana, and look at that amazing foliage. So primary cross and in spike, and I can tell you for nothing that the orchids I came away with from the Schwerter visit all had spikes or sheaths. We've just been looking at a variegated Phalaenopsis, which of course is lovely, but personally I prefer the white variegation rather than the yellow, and the yellow seems to be a lot more common. Okay, this is Phalaenopsis schwelleriana that went into the cross we just looked at. Not so mad about the pink flowers, but they do flutter a good bit. But I loved these Stewartiana flowers. Look at that. Gorgeous. Now I must tell you, I really was tempted to buy one of those large Phalaenopsis Stewartiana in full flower with the yellow in the lip and everything and bring it home with me, but I had real fears about being able to fit it into my luggage. Now I'd travelled to Germany with hand luggage only because I was only going for a few days and certainly wasn't planning on buying any plants. This visit to Schwerter was completely impromptu, so I had real fears about fitting something that big into my bag. So I had to bear that in mind the whole time when I went around, that I had to get stuff that was quite small, which was a big constraint. Now we've moved into the fourth greenhouse, which was kind of hidden up behind, and I had to ask whether I was allowed in it or not because I didn't understand the sign on the door in German. And it had a lot of baby plants, a lot of small plants too, miniatures, and this amazing Paph. Isn't it just gorgeous? I love the sea of white, and I think that's going to be the thumbnail for this particular video. I was running out of time by the time I got here, and of course looking at miniatures would have been a good thing for the limited space I had in my bag, but at this stage really I didn't have enough time to look at anything properly, and you'll judge that, you'll understand that by the fact that there are fewer individual plants photographed and labelled in this section. Now I guess this is a bit of potting they did earlier, lots of baby plants, all done up so beautifully, and some more mounts over here. There were a number of unusual things up here as well, genus names that I hadn't heard of before, which is always really interesting. Look at these enormous plants here. Now this would have been great if I could have taken something really big like that home with me in my bag, because when you buy online they're never going to send you the enormous plants, but Ah, well, I didn't. You'll see soon enough what I managed to buy. And look over there, do you see him yet? The Zygonisia just bobbing up above the whole sea of orchids down below. There they are with their cardboard-like leaves. You can actually determine the texture just from looking at them. Really gorgeous plants. And here in this greenhouse was an amazing splash of colour in the shape of Dendrobium Cuthbertsonianum in all different rainbow shades. Now, personally, this isn't my favourite plant. There's something about the different colours and the shape of the leaves that just reminds me of bedding. You know, the kind of plants we grow in our gardens for summer that just have one use and then get composted afterwards. And I don't know whether it reminds me of heather or something like that. But anyway, not my favourite plant, but I do appreciate that this one was particularly beautifully grown, and that it is an achievement to have so many of them in different colours at that time of year. A great plant if you're looking for something in a small space because it never gets really big. This greenhouse was absolutely sweltering hot. It must have been several degrees warmer than the other places, and I had to strip down. The cardigan came off down here, so when I actually finished looking around all the nurseries, it was a big job picking up my bits of clothing from various greenhouses where I'd left them. Here's a wonderful Dendrobium nobile hybrid, which was looking fantastic. And my goodness, check out this gorgeous Kingianum cross. Look at those. Well, they're not stripes on the leaves. It's got a purple edge, a pinky purple edge. Gorgeous little thing. So now I'm about to get booted out of the Schwerter Orchid Nursery because it's almost 12:30 on a Sunday and they want to close. They want to go home to their lives. And just time for me to gather up my purchases and my clothing and pay for them and take the 5 buses back to where I came from, buses and trains. I hope you like this visit. I hope you enjoy walking around the Schwerter Nursery with me as much as I love being here. Thanks very much for watching and check back soon to see what I bought. Bye for now.